You're watching this video because you asked your teacher a question about your grades, which could be answered with averages. Averages just represent the typical or normal value in a set of data. You've probably heard people talk about averages before. For example, people might say that the average American family has 1.94 children, or the average American eats 42 pounds of cheese. This gives you an idea of what is typical or common among a set of data like a population. Here's an example of averages using chocolate chip cookies. We have 5 chocolate chip cookies, and as you can see, each cookie has a different number of chocolate chips in it. If we want to know what the most typical value for the number of chips in each cookie is, we would need to calculate the average. To calculate the average of a set of data, you add all of the values in the data set and then divide the sum by the total number of values in the set. For the cookie example, we took the number of chips in each cookie and added them together to get a total of 29. Then we divided 29, the total number of chips, by the total number of cookies, or the total number of values in the set, and came out with 5.8 chocolate chips per cookie. Obviously, none of the chocolate chips have 5.8 chips, but the most typical or common distribution of the chocolate chips among the 5 cookies is 5.8. We can prove that by taking the 29 total chocolate chips and sharing them evenly between the 5 cookies. If we were to do that, each cookie would have 5.8 chips, or almost 6 chips. Our grades are based off of averages. A student who earns an A is a student who typically has a grade between 90 and 100%. A student with a B is a student whose most common or most typical grade is between 80 and 89%. A C is a student whose most typical grade is between 70 and 79%, and so on. Here's an example. Here's a student who has 5 grades, a 92, 95, 100, 97, and 93. I bet that just looking at the grades, you were able to figure out that the average or the most common grade the student receives is an A, because each of the 5 grades is an A. 92, 95, all of those are within the 90 to 100% range. When we add together the total scores and divide by 5, we find that the student's grade is 95.4%. Here's a more varied example. Now we have a student who has a list of grades that fall in the A, B, D, C, and B range. So this student's grades are more difficult to predict just by looking at them. But when we calculate their average, we find that their typical grade is a 79.8%, which is a C. So this student's most typical or most normal grade is somewhere in the C range. So I often have students ask me why their grade drops when they miss an assignment. So let's take a look at a student and let's see what happens if they just didn't do an assignment. So here is the first example that we looked at, a student who has 5 grades and has an average score of 95.4%. If they were to just not do one of their assignments, they would earn a 0%. If you then calculate their average by finding the sum of their total grades and then dividing by the number of grades, their grade drops from a typical grade of an A to a typical grade of a C. I also often have students that ask me why their grade didn't go up to the grade that they thought it would be after they worked really hard or did really well on one assignment. Let's take a look at this student. They have grades, they have a D, a C, a B, a C, and a D. Their grade averages out to a 71%, which is a C. Let's see what happens if on their next assignment they get 100%. So their old grade was a C, and their new grade, when we sum their total and then divide by 6, since they now have 6 grades, we find that their average or typical grade is now a 76%. So even though they earned a 100% on their most recent assignment, their grade is still in the C range because their grade is still typically or most commonly found within that C zone. So what's the takeaway in all of this? It's easier to keep your grade up than to improve it. My strongest recommendation to anyone who has a question about why their grade hasn't improved or what they can do to improve their grade is to do their work well and do it well the first time.